Hello, everyone. I recently did a video on a duplex and triplex, and I broke down what it would look like per month and if it's cash flowing. And, if you lived in one, perhaps, and rent out the other, how much it reduce your mortgage. But then I figured, you know what? Let me invite Dwayne Kavanagh. He is a mortgage broker to break it down even further and find out, well, what does it take to qualify? How much money do I need? And what is this even feasible? So Dwayne, take it away. Introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself.
Herbert, thanks for having me on your podcast and your shows. So like Herbert said, I'm a licensed mortgage agent, level 2, with Mission 35 mortgages out of Hamilton. Although I'm based out of Hamilton, I do work with clients all over Ontario. And I think you're bringing up a great topic. In fact, I saw you post this on LinkedIn. I'm like, I got to comment on this. And this is because I've got so many clients right now. They're trying to figure out, how do I get in the market? And what are my options? What kind of strategies? So a lot of people just say, hey, I just save for a down payment or go to the bank of mom and dad and get some help there. But what are some other strategies that can help me get into buying my first home? And house hacking is one of my favorite. I love it. I had a friend of mine back in just graduated high school, going into college, bought his first house. Everybody lived there, and the guy had it paid off in a few years. Like, it was nuts. This guy's like under 30 and owns his home outright. So I love that strategy. So when you posted those two, I'm like, okay, those are good. Now, the two you posted are two different scenarios, and I'm going to go through both of them. A lot of the conversations that I have with my client is like, how am I going to qualify for this house that, when I was looking at buying it by myself and having no rental income, I couldn't qualify for 650 or 700,000. How can I qualify now? And that's because we're using the rental income to help you qualify. And I'll walk you through kind of how we do that. First of all, there's two methods. There's really three, but I'm only going to talk about two. Two methods that our lenders use to help you qualify. One is the add to income method,
Right.
and the other one is offset. And they do make a pretty big difference. And so I'll talk about add to income first. And really, it's a simple method where the lender's going to take add a percentage of that rental income to your personal income to help you qualify. Typically, that's 50%. So for example, if you have gross rental income of $2,000, you'll be able to use $1,000 to your income to help you qualify. Okay, so
wait, so that's a good point. So if you're charging rent of $2,000, 1,000 of that will be considered part of your income.
Your monthly income, 100%.
That's incredible. Okay,
yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, and so where that comes into play, and a lot of people don't understand, is basically when we're looking to try to qualify somebody for a property, what we're trying to do is what we call suitability. We want to make sure that you're not buying too much property. And how we're regulated on that is by using two ratios. One is called GDS, the other one is TDS. So your gross debt service ratio is taking all the expenses to the house. So that's including like your mortgage payment, your property tax, $100 of heat. If there's condo fees, we add that in as well. And then we divide that by the gross income. And that, if you're a first-time home buyer, has to stay below 39%. In fact, most home buyers should stay below 39%, right? But then when we're talking about TDS, here we're also talking about all the other stuff that if you canceled them tomorrow, you'd still be obliged to pay them. And these are things like student loans, car loans and leases and stuff like that. That has to get credit cards that have to get added into the total debt, and that has to be below 44. So that's
not to go off script here too, but I find that people don't know this, and you can touch on this too, is if I co-sign, let's say for my daughter's car, that's considered debt to me, is it not?
Well, yeah, it's a liability for sure.
It's a liability. That's right. Yeah.
So there's liabilities, and it's more on the houses. So it's like I'll talk to somebody. I'm like, hey, do you own another house? No, I don't. But then I find out they're on title because they co-signed for a daughter. Now that's a big difference.
Right. So, okay. Thank you for that. But yes, I just wanted to make sure, because some people don't know that. It's like, well, I co-sign, I'm not making the payments, but no, you're still responsible for that if something happens. So
right. So the other way that a lender, not too many, so most of the lenders that I work with will use the add to income method, but there is another method, and there's only a handful of lenders that still use it, and that's called offset. Scotiabank is one of them. So what that means there is instead of adding to income, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract a portion of the rental income from the overall expenses that you have to pay. So your property tax, your mortgage payment, utilities, stuff like that. And it does make a huge difference. In fact, in most cases, giving a scenario that one of the ones that you were talking about, if everyone made like 160 grand, like so total gross income,
Right.
and we're looking to buy one of those properties close to $1 million, when we're looking at adding back to income, the deal didn't work. But if I moved it over to the offset, it actually worked and the ratios were in line. So it's a lot of lenders won't use it. They use the add to income. That's the majority, but there are some lenders that use offset. And that's why working with a mortgage broker or mortgage agent can help sometimes, because we know which lenders to go to in certain situations.
Well, not only that, but I find that certain financial institutions will just say simply, no, you don't qualify. Thanks a
Exactly.
lot. See you later. Whereas
I hear that.
you as a broker, you can be like, okay, well, lender A said no, but I got B and C over here who are considering it. And let me do some more paperwork here. Let me get some more information for you.
Right. Right. So if we take those two, if you want to talk about the scenarios now.
Yeah, so I sent Dwayne, just for context here. I sent Dwayne a duplex that I actually personally visited in Halton Hills. It's a duplex. There were two identical units side by side. I gave him the scenario that it was, I believe, 995,000. It was sold for. The rent would have been $2,400 for each unit. But if I decided to live in one and rent out the other, $2,400 is coming in. What did you break down for me?
So we took. Are you talking about the Guelph one?
Yes.
So the Guelph one there. The home purchase price was 965K. I did this one with the minimal amount that you can put down. So here's typically everyone thinks, well, if I'm a first time home buyer and I'm buying a house, I'm going to have 5% down. Well, it only works like that for the first 500,000. Anything above 500,000, you're paying 10%. So you got to use a blended average. So in this scenario here, you had a home price of 965K. We had a down payment of 71,500, basically 7.5% down.
Right.
So that means you're going to carry a big mortgage. So your mortgage there is going to be 929,240. And then you got to think about, well, what are the other upfront costs that I need to worry about on the closing? So there's things like your land transfer tax. There's going to be PST on the insurance premium and that sort of thing. There's going to be legal fees. But then you also got to think about, well, what are the monthly fees that I have to pay going forward? So is the person that I'm renting the properties to, are they paying the hydro and the utilities? Because that makes it pretty easy. Or are you paying it? So those are things that you got to consider, because that has to go with your monthly payment. So
and that's where someone like myself can come in and really break it down for clients and say, okay, hey, listen, this duplex, even though it is considered a duplex, it only has 1 meter. That may not be a good thing, because if your neighbor decides to do laundry all day, well, guess who's paying for half of that water? So having a 2-meter system and things like that you wouldn't really consider, that's where I come into play. But yeah, continue on.
Yeah, 100%. So the mortgage on this one would be about $2,955. And that's because we're taking into consideration the rental income. So the rental income there was roughly, I believe, $2,400 that you put in that. So you've got a total mortgage that's going to be about $5,086.42. Here we're using 30 or 25-year amortization. We have to use the 25-year now because it's not December 15th yet, and the new rules are not in play. So if we take a 5-year, 25-year amortization, you're looking at about a monthly payment of $5,086.42. Or after you bring in the rental income, it's $2,955, which for buying a 2-bedroom house, that's typically what I'm seeing for mortgages anyways. So now they're able to buy something that's got a lot more value, right? Because you've got your rental property there. The rental income we used here was an add to income scenario, and the amount of income that you would need for that would be roughly about $150,000 combined. Gross income is what I use.
And thank you for bringing those numbers in, because it's very clear that at $2,900, that's pretty much that's a great mortgage to have. And for any clients thinking about this, you always want to consider at least to have a 3-month buffer in case somebody leaves and you need to rent out that place. And let's say it does take 3 months to find a new tenant. At least you're covered for those initial 3 months, maybe 5 if you really want to be you really want to protect yourself. But yeah, go on, Dwayne.
Yeah, and the other thing I would like to say, like this is an owner occupied, what we call an owner occupied rental, right? What a
Right.
lot of people don't realize is a portion of all of those expenses. You got to think of it like a business. You're basically now self-employed, right? You have a self-employed business because you have income coming in from this rental property that you're renting out the basement or in this case, it was basically a unit right next to it. Now, all of those expenses for that property are a tax deduction. So you want to make sure you speak with a professional accountant, but there's opportunities there to help reduce the amount of taxes you're paying on your basic income because you can pay this off, like interest on, or use this as a tax deduction, like your interest on your mortgage, your property tax, and it's all a portion based on the size of the property, right? So the usage of the property would be a formula that your accountant would use, but it is a tax deduction, right?
That's
So
amazing.
which
I
is
did not know that.
good. Yeah, exactly.
All right,
So
let's go into the, unless you're done there, but let's go
yeah,
into the triplex, because the triplex I recently did got a lot of views. A lot of people were really interested in that video because it's like it opens the door to a possibility of, house hacking, where you live in one, you rent out the 2 other units, and now you get a bigger home. You're in the city. This particular house was on St. Clair, so you're in Toronto. So I always get people telling me, "Oh, I'm priced out of the market. Toronto's too expensive." Well, here's a great way to get into the market, especially if you're a first-time home buyer or you're new to maybe you're newly married, as an example. This could give you the opportunity to buy a triplex, live in one, rent out the other two, and start earning that income, or start generating. The value of that home keeps on increasing. So go ahead, Dwayne.
yeah, so very similar to the duplex, right? Same scenario there. You're going to live in one of the units, rent out the other two, and use the rent from that. So what I want to do in this one is give you a different scenario. I want to show you this as a full rental. So this is a full investment property
Yeah. Okay.
because
Great.
there's some big differences between the two that I want to explain. So in this scenario here, we have a home price of about 975,000, pretty good for Toronto.
That's really good. Yeah.
And for a down payment, because this is not going to be owner occupied. This one's going to be you're going to rent it
Purely
out
an
as an
investment.
investment property. You have to have 20% down. So
That makes
where you
sense.
get into the minimum down payment is if you are going to live in one of the units. Okay, so I wanted to have that in our discussion because a lot of people don't know that. So in this scenario here, this is a cash flow positive triplex. In the fact,
Yes.
it's you've got 11 from my numbers. You got about an additional $1,130, and that's pretty good because there's not a
Yeah.
lot of properties that are cash flowing right now. So your home price here is 975. We're going to do a mortgage of about 780,000 with a down payment of 195,000. In this case here, you're renting out all 3 units. Your total mortgage on this property is going to be $3,883. Again, you're going to do a 5-year fixed. By the time we lock in, hopefully you're around a 4.39 fixed rate, which is where we think you're going to be. But because we put 20% down, now we can do 30-year amortization. So that's why your
Oh,
monthly
that's a good
payment,
point.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why your monthly payment is a little bit lower. So it's one of those situations where, hey, if I want to go out and buy a house, an investment property, and I want it to be in Toronto where it's always going to get rented, like just lots of issues right now with rental properties and stuff like that, and too many people looking for places in Ontario. That's a good problem to have, right? So
Yeah.
in this scenario, you've got rates coming down, and we're in a rate declining environment. So some of the investors are coming out of the woodwork to look at properties like this.
Exactly. Yeah. And did you do a calculation if I lived in one unit and rented out the other two?
No,
No, that's okay.
I
But
can do that quickly if you want.
yeah, but no, it is a way of people to, even because I know people who are living at home, right, and they have no intention of moving out of their parents' house, which is fine. And this is just another way to invest in real estate. If you don't even want to live in there, you can buy this place, and it's under $1 million currently on the market. The numbers are there, and you can be cash flow positive in this kind of environment. So, for people looking to buy, you have two options here. You got the duplex, you live in one, you rent out the other. You got this triplex, rent out the whole unit, or even live in one, rent out the other two, and you're in a situation where the monthly that you're paying is not so astronomical now. Now it's not going to be a $5,000-$6,000 per month mortgage. It's going to be greatly reduced by who you have in there. And if you can find great tenants that you're going to get along with, who are going to be paying on time and monthly, my goodness, you're going to be in such a great situation, because 5 years from now, when you decide to sell that unit or even refinance if you want, you're going to be in such a great situation to be in.
Well, I ran the numbers real quick because I have this
Thank
amazing
you.
mortgage
Yeah,
app. All I did was just change the amount. So your total monthly cost is going to be 1,061.
that's
So,
incredible.
so
Yeah,
so imagine that's your mortgage for a
that's
triplex.
incredible. Who has that? The only people that have that are the ones that locked in 20 years ago. So
Yeah, because you've
that's
got
incredible.
basically your mortgage payment's going to be stay the same. So 38883. So 3,883.11. Then you've got your property tax you're going to have to throw on top of that, and that's $227 per month roughly. But your rental income is going to be roughly around $3,500. So you deduct that from your mortgage and your expenses, and your monthly cost on owning a triplex is 1,061. Where are you
Okay.
going to find a place to rent for under 1,000?
Well, where are you going to find a place to rent for that kind of money? And then, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
that frees up my time and my money and everything. Because, I mean, think about this. When you buy a house, and let's say your mortgage is $3,000 to $5,000 per month, you are now dependent on your job. You're dependent on income to come in to cover that, because that's a big chunk of your money going out to a mortgage. But if you can live in a triplex and your mortgage payments is only $1,000 a month, or $1,100, my goodness, it gives you freedom. It gives you the ability to breathe a little bit and say, even if I lose my job, I'm going to have stability in my life where, the renters are paying for a big chunk of my mortgage. I have time to do the things that I need to do. I don't have to rush out the door at 6 o'clock in the morning anymore. I have more options.
Oh,
And
100%.
yeah, and I experienced that too myself when I bought a condo at 26. I was looking at that and I'm like, wait a second, why am I paying this mortgage if I can rent out the rooms? And then I rented out the rooms and I'm like, wait a second, this is working well. Why don't I rent out more? And then I was living rent free for 5 years, and the freedom that I experienced was incredible, because I was no longer dependent on the company that I was working at, because I didn't have that massive mortgage to worry about. I had now the freedom to travel, to go out, to work in a company that I didn't have any stress about, because it wasn't like, oh, I'm really dependent on this. I better be quiet and just listen to what they tell me and I'll get my paycheck. I didn't want that. That was not a life I wanted. And, you know, that was back in 2000 when I did that. So, and here we are today. Nothing's changed.
Right.
You can still buy places out there like a duplex, like a triplex. The further out you go, the cheaper it gets. There's, Hamilton has $600,000 duplexes out there. Windsor, my goodness, has a $300,000 duplexes. So again, not ideal locations if you want to be in Toronto, but there's options, and this could be a possibility. And Dwayne brought up a really good point. If you visit his site, and we'll put the links below, he has an app that you can download where you can do these quick calculations on the app, figure out, okay, well, if I have a selling price of X amount, how much do I need as a down payment? All of that kind of stuff. His system will show you what that looks like. And then you can message him and say, hey, I found this property. What do you think? And then he can make his magic and get you the numbers that you're looking for. That makes sense. And you're never going to hear from Dwayne a no. It's just like, hold on, I think I got something else going on. Because I come across a lot of potential buyers who said, well, I went to my bank that I've been with 20 years and they said no. It's like, no, Did they even try? Here, let me give you somebody that can, look at the whole picture and come up with different options that make sense.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you for the kind words too, and it's so true. Like the amount of people that I come across that have not been pre-qualified, that are already shopping around, not only just wasting their time, but everyone else's time that's involved in the process. Like, look, it's very quick to get pre-qualified. Like, in fact, there's a function in the app where you can actually get pre-qualified without even talking to me.
That's
It's
incredible.
not a pre-approval, so you're not sending me documents. I'm not verifying your income, but it gives you a rough estimate of what you think you can afford, and you can include rentals in there. So it's a nice tool to do stuff like that if you just like playing with the numbers as well, right?
Thank you, Dwayne. And where can they find you? What website can they find you at to get this app to learn more about you?
Yeah, Kavanagh Mortgages .ca is where you can find all of that information, and we'll provide links for sure in the notes.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dwayne. You have delivered amazing information as usual. That's why I refer people to you. This is why I do this. And I just want to let people know, it's never too late. You're not priced out of the market. It's never the case. The situation is you need to talk to professionals. You need to talk to an agent that knows the market, that understands what's out there. There's could be scenarios that could present themselves that are not your typical mortgage. And then you have professionals like Dwayne who can speak to different financial companies out there that can look at certain aspects of the home and not necessarily you as a person. So if you hear a no from your bank, talk to Dwayne because he can most likely get you a yes. So thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks. Okay, now do you
Oh.
want to record that quickly? Do you want to do a